My son's hand connected with my face with a crack that echoed through my living room. All because I'd asked his wife not to smoke in my home. But 10 minutes later, when the ambulance siren screamed down my street, he learned that some mistakes you can never take back. Welcome back to your ultimate destination for gripping revenge stories, family betrayals, shocking betrayals, and emotional justice. Subscribe now and join a community and tell us where you're watching from. Turn on the notification bell for our next story. Are you ready to witness the ultimate payback? Let's get started. My name is Zaha, and I'm 68 years old. I've survived a lot in those 68 years. A childhood in poverty. The loss of my wife to cancer 15 years ago. A heart attack 3 years back that the doctors said should have killed me. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the moment my only son struck me in my own home. Let me take you back to that Sunday afternoon in October, to the family dinner that destroyed everything. Have you ever been disrespected in your own home by family? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes we need to know we're not alone in these painful experiences. My small house in suburban Cleveland had always been my sanctuary. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen where I'd cooked 1,000 meals, and a living room where Anthony had taken his first steps. The mortgage was paid off, had been for 10 years, and I kept it neat as a pin, just like my late wife Sarah used to. The Sunday dinners were my idea, a tradition I'd started after Anthony married Elizabeth 3 years ago. Once a month, they'd drive over from their apartment in downtown Cleveland, and I'd cook. It was my way of staying connected to my son, of maintaining the bond we'd had before Elizabeth entered the picture. This particular Sunday, I'd made pot roast, Anthony's favorite since he was a boy. The house smelled of rosemary and garlic, warm bread cooling on the counter. I'd set the table with Sarah's good china, the set she'd insisted we register for when we got married 40 years ago. It's for special occasions, she'd said. What's more special than family? I'd replied. Anthony and Elizabeth arrived at 4 o'clock, 30 minutes late, as usual. Anthony looked tired, his face drawn, wearing a polo shirt and jeans that hung looser than they should. He was 35, but looked older, stress aging him prematurely. Elizabeth swept in wearing designer sunglasses despite the overcast day, her blonde hair in a high ponytail, yoga pants, and a crop top that seemed inappropriate for a family dinner. Her perfume, heavy and expensive, preceded her into the house. "Hey, Pops," Anthony said, his hug brief and distracted. "Son." I held on a moment longer than he did, trying to remember when his embraces had become so perfunctory. "Elizabeth, welcome." "Zaha." She didn't hug me, just slipped past into the living room, already on her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen. I tried with Elizabeth. God knows I tried. When Anthony first brought her home, I'd welcomed her with open arms. She was beautiful, confident, and seemed to make my son happy. But over 3 years, I'd watched her gradually isolate him from friends, from me, from anyone who might question her behavior. The dinners had become tense affairs where she'd spend most of the time on her phone, barely acknowledging the effort I put into cooking. But I persisted because they were my only chance to see Anthony, to make sure he was okay. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, heading back to the kitchen. "Anthony, can you help me set out the serving dishes?" "Actually, Dad, Elizabeth and I need to talk to you about something." My stomach tightened. Nothing good ever started with those words. We gathered in the living room, me in my armchair, the worn fabric molded to my shape from years of use, Anthony and Elizabeth on the couch. She'd finally put down her phone, which felt ominous. "What's this about?" I asked. Elizabeth crossed her legs, her foot bouncing impatiently. "Anthony and I are moving to Los Angeles. He got a job offer." Pride and panic warred in my chest. "Los Angeles? That's wonderful, son. What kind of position?" "Marketing director for a tech startup," Anthony said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's a big step up, good money." "When do you leave?" 2 weeks. 2 weeks. My only child, moving across the country in 2 weeks, and I was just hearing about it now? "I wish you'd told me sooner," I said carefully, trying to keep the hurt from my voice. "We could have planned a proper send-off, spent some time." "We're telling you now," Elizabeth cut in, her tone sharp. "Besides, it's not like we see you that often anyway. We have Sunday dinners every month." "Which you guilt Anthony into attending." "Elizabeth," Anthony started. "What?" "It's true. He comes because he feels obligated, not because he wants to." The words hit like punches. I looked at my son. Anthony, is that true? He squirmed, caught between his wife and his father. Dad, it's not that I don't want to see you. It's just, you live so far from downtown, and we're busy, and I live 20 minutes away. In a neighborhood that's not exactly safe, Elizabeth said, wrinkling her nose. Honestly, Zaha, I've been telling Anthony for months that you should sell this place and move into a senior living facility. You're almost 70. You shouldn't be maintaining a house alone. My temper, usually so carefully controlled, flared. I'm 68, not 90. I'm perfectly capable of maintaining my own home. Are you? She gestured around the living room. This furniture is ancient. The carpet is worn. The whole place smells old. This is my home. My wife and I raised Anthony here. Every piece of furniture has a memory attached to it. Exactly. You're living in the past. It's not healthy. Elizabeth, that's enough, Anthony said, but his voice was weak, lacking conviction. She ignored him. We're just concerned about you. Living alone at your age, with your health issues. My health is fine. I had one heart attack 3 years ago, and I've been careful ever since. My doctor says I'm doing well. For now. But what happens when you fall? When you can't manage the stairs? When? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I stood, needing to end this conversation before I said something I'd regret. Let's have dinner. The pot roast is getting cold. Elizabeth checked her phone. Actually, I need a cigarette first. Been a stressful day. She pulled a pack from her designer purse and lit up right there in my living room. The click of her lighter sharp in the sudden silence. The smoke hit my lungs immediately. I'd been sensitive to it since the heart attack, doctor's orders to avoid secondhand smoke. But more than that, Sarah had been a nurse. We'd never allowed smoking in our home. It was a rule, a boundary that had never been crossed. Elizabeth, I said, my voice calm but firm, I'd appreciate it if you didn't smoke in the house. You're welcome to step outside on the porch. She took a long drag, exhaling slowly in my direction. It's cold outside. I understand, but I have respiratory sensitivity, and we've never allowed smoking indoors. There's a covered porch with a heater. Jesus Christ, Zaha, it's one cigarette. Stop being so dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm asking you to respect a simple rule in my home. Your home. She laughed, a sound without humor. This dump? You should be grateful we even come here. Most people our age don't waste their Sundays babysitting their elderly parents. Babysitting. The word stung. I invite you for dinner. I cook for you. How is that? Elizabeth, maybe you should just step outside, Anthony interjected weakly. No. She took another defiant drag. I'm not going to freeze my ass off because your father is being unreasonable. It's one cigarette. He can deal with it for 5 minutes. I moved toward the window, opening it to let in fresh air. Elizabeth, I'm not trying to be difficult. I have a legitimate health concern. The smoke. The smoke isn't going to kill you. Stop being such a drama queen. Please, I said, my patience fraying. I'm asking nicely. Just step outside. 5 minutes. And I'm saying no. We stood at an impasse, her chin raised defiantly, smoke curling between us like a physical manifestation of the toxicity she'd brought into my home. Anthony, I said, turning to my son, can you please ask your wife to respect my house rules? And that's when everything shattered. Anthony stood, his face flushed red with anger. Dad, why do you always have to make things difficult? It's one cigarette. Why can't you just let it go? Because it's my home, and I'm asking for basic respect. Respect. Anthony's voice rose. You want to talk about respect? You disrespect Elizabeth constantly, always criticizing her, always making her feel unwelcome. I've never. You look at her like she's not good enough, like she stole me from you. Well, guess what? I chose her. I choose her every day. And if you can't respect that, if you can't treat my wife with basic decency, I'm asking her not to smoke in my house. That's basic decency. You're being controlling and manipulative, just like you've always been. The accusation hit me like a physical blow. Controlling? Anthony, I've never. You have. My whole life. It's been about what you want, what you think is best, how I should live. Well, I'm 35 years old, and I'm done. I'm done with your judgment, your disappointment, your constant. Anthony, I have never been disappointed in you. I'm proud of. Bullshit. You've been disappointed since the day I didn't become a doctor like you wanted. Since I chose marketing instead of medicine. Since I married Elizabeth instead of the nice girl from church you kept pushing me toward. I never pushed anyone. Enough. Anthony's shout echoed through the house. Then, before I could process what was happening, he was in my space, his face inches from mine. You will not disrespect my wife in your home or anywhere else. Do you understand me? Son, please calm down. Do you understand? I opened my mouth to respond, to de-escalate, to reach the reasonable man I'd raised. And my son slapped me across the face. The sound was sharp, explosive. The impact snapped my head to the side, my glasses flying off, landing somewhere on the carpet. Pain bloomed across my cheek, hot and shocking. Time stopped. I stood there, hand to my face, unable to process what had just happened. My son, my Anthony, who I'd held as a baby, who I'd taught to ride a bike, who I'd walked through his mother's funeral, had just struck me. Anthony. Even Elizabeth sounded shocked. But Anthony was backing away, his hand still raised, his face a mask of rage and something else, horror at what he'd just done. I touched my face. My fingers came away wet. Whether from tears or blood from where my cheek had caught on my teeth, I couldn't tell. Get out, I whispered. Dad, get out of my house. Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. You hit me. My voice was steady now, cold. You hit your father because your wife wanted to smoke in my home. Get out. Elizabeth stubbed out her cigarette in my wife's good china, the plate I'd set out for our special family dinner. Come on, Anthony. Let's go. He's not worth it. Not worth it. My own son's wife thought I wasn't worth basic respect, and my son had just proven her right by striking me in my own living room. Anthony stood frozen, his hand still trembling, his face pale. Dad, go. They went. I stood in my living room, hand to my throbbing face, pot roast getting cold in the kitchen, Sarah's broken china plate on the coffee table, cigarette ash ground into the carpet she'd picked out 30 years ago. And I wondered how we'd gotten here. How my sweet boy had become a man who would strike his elderly father. How family dinners had become war zones. How love had curdled into violence. I found my glasses, one lens cracked, and put them on. Through the fractured lens, my living room looked shattered, broken into pieces just like my heart. Then, from outside, I heard Elizabeth scream. It was a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard. Pure terror, primal and piercing. I ran to the window and saw my son collapsed on the driveway. Elizabeth crouched over him, still screaming. 10 minutes. It had been exactly 10 minutes since he'd slapped me. And now my son was dying on my driveway. I ran. My 68-year-old legs carried me faster than they had in years, my heart, that damaged, scarred heart, pounding against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The front door slammed against the wall as I burst through it, my cracked glasses making everything look fractured, unreal. Anthony lay on the concrete driveway, his body convulsing. His eyes had rolled back, white and terrible. Foam flecked his lips. His limbs jerked in violent, uncontrolled spasms. Elizabeth crouched beside him, her hands fluttering uselessly, her screams dissolving into incoherent sobs. Anthony, Anthony, oh God, what's happening? I dropped to my knees beside my son, pain shooting through my old joints, ignored completely. My hand went to his neck, searching for a pulse. There, rapid, erratic, like a bird's wings beating against a cage. Call 911. I shouted at Elizabeth. She stared at me, her face blank with shock. Call 911 now. She fumbled for her phone with shaking hands while I rolled Anthony onto his side. Recovery position, something I remembered from the CPR class I'd taken years ago when he was born. I couldn't let him choke, couldn't let him aspirate. 911, what's your emergency? The voice came through Elizabeth's phone speaker. My husband, he's having a seizure. Elizabeth couldn't finish, dissolving into hysterics. I took the phone from her trembling hands. This is ZAHA Morrison, 847, Maple Street, Cleveland. My son is having a grand mal seizure. He's 35 years old, no known seizure disorder. The episode started approximately 2 minutes ago. He's breathing, but unresponsive. We need an ambulance immediately. My voice was steady, calm. Years of dealing with my wife's illness had taught me how to function in crisis, how to shut down emotion and focus on what needed to be done. Ambulance is on the way, sir. Stay on the line with me. Is he still seizing? I looked down at Anthony. The violent convulsions had stopped, but he lay completely limp now, his breathing shallow and labored. The seizure has stopped. He's postictal, breathing is compromised. Sir, are you medical personnel? No, but my late wife was a nurse. I know the terminology. Good. Keep him on his side, monitor his breathing. Don't restrain him if another seizure starts. The ambulance is 4 minutes out. For minutes. An eternity. I held my son's head, keeping his airway clear, my other hand on his chest feeling the rise and fall of his breath. Each breath felt like a gift, a promise that he was still here, still alive. My cheek still throbbed where he'd hit me. I could feel it swelling, the heat of the bruise forming. 10 minutes ago, this man had struck me in anger. Now I was cradling his head, begging God not to take him. That's what love is, I thought distantly. It survives even violence. It persists even when it shouldn't. Elizabeth had collapsed onto the driveway, her designer clothes soaking up oil stains, her perfect hair falling loose from its ponytail. She rocked back and forth, making a sound like a wounded animal. What happened? I asked her, my voice sharp. Before the seizure, what happened? I don't know. We got to the car, and he was yelling, saying he couldn't believe what he'd done, that he'd hit you. And then he grabbed his head and said it hurt, that his head was exploding. And then she gestured helplessly at Anthony's prone form. Head pain before the seizure. That wasn't good. That suggested something neurological, something serious. The ambulance sirens split the air, growing louder. Neighbors emerged from their houses, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson from next door, still in her church clothes. The Rodriguez family across the street. Tom Chun from 2 houses down, already crossing his lawn toward us. Zaha, what happened? Tom asked, dropping to his knees beside me. Seizure. Ambulance is almost here. Tom saw my face, the rapidly darkening bruise, the swelling. Jesus, Zaha, your face. Not now. The ambulance screamed to a stop in front of my house, lights painting everything in alternating red and white. 2 paramedics jumped out, moving with practiced efficiency. Sir, we need you to step back. The first paramedic, a young woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, said gently but firmly. I released Anthony's head reluctantly, my hands leaving him feeling like tearing off my own limbs. The paramedics moved in, assessing, calling out vital signs to each other in that rapid-fire medical shorthand. BP 180 over 110, pulse 140 and thready, pupils unequal and sluggish, GCS of 6. Unequal pupils. Brain injury. Hemorrhage. Stroke. How long was the seizure? The male paramedic asked. Approximately 2 minutes of active convulsions, followed by postictal state. I said. Any history of seizures? Not that I know of. Any recent head trauma? I hesitated. He was agitated before it happened. Said his head hurt, that it was exploding. The paramedics exchanged looks. The woman was already on her radio. Dispatch, we need to notify University Hospital Neurology. Possible hemorrhagic stroke or aneurysm, priority 1 transport. Aneurysm. The word dropped like a stone into dark water. They worked quickly, efficiently. For line in, oxygen mask on, backboard under him, straps securing his body. Anthony looked so small suddenly, so vulnerable, strapped to that board like a child. Are you family? The male paramedic asked me. His father. You can ride with us. Ma'am. He looked at Elizabeth. I'm his wife. You'll need to follow in your car. We only have room for 1. Elizabeth stood, her yoga pants and crop top stained with oil and dirt, her face streaked with makeup and tears. But I'm his wife. Sir's already in. You can follow us to University Hospital. The paramedic's voice was kind but final. They loaded Anthony into the ambulance. I climbed in after him, my old body protesting every movement, adrenaline the only thing keeping me functional. Sir, that's a nasty bruise on your face, the female paramedic said, studying me. Did you fall during the emergency? I touched my cheek, and the truth stuck in my throat. How could I say it? How could I admit that my son had hit me minutes before collapsing? I'm fine, I said. Just take care of my son. She looked like she wanted to press the issue, but nodded. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and we were moving, sirens wailing. The world outside reduced to streaks of light and color through the small windows. I held Anthony's hand, the same hand that had struck me, and prayed in a way I hadn't since Sarah's last days. Please, God, please, I'll forgive anything. Just let him live. Let him live, and I'll never mention this day again. Let him live. The heart monitor beeped steadily, each beep a promise that he was still here. The oxygen mask fogged with each breath. The four dripped life-sustaining fluids into his veins. And I sat there, an old man with a bruised face and a broken heart, holding on to his son and hoping God was listening. University Hospital's emergency department was organized chaos. The ambulance bay doors flew open, and suddenly there were doctors and nurses everywhere, a coordinated swarm of medical precision. Anthony was whisked away on the gurney, people shouting vital signs and medical terminology I half remembered from Sarah's nursing days. Get him to CT now. Neuro's been notified. Start mannitol, call for the or to be on standby. And then he was gone, swallowed by the depths of the hospital, and I was left standing in the harsh fluorescent lights of the ER, alone. A nurse, older, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, approached me. Sir, are you the patient's father? Yes. ZAHA Morrison. My son is Anthony Morrison. Come with me. We need to get some information. She led me to a small consultation room, beige walls and uncomfortable chairs and a box of tissues on the table that spoke to how many tears had been shed in this space. Do you know what happened? She asked, pen poised over a clipboard. I told her everything I could remember. The timeline, his agitation, the complaint about head pain, the seizure, everything except the slap. That I couldn't voice. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Does Anthony have any medical history we should know about? Previous seizures, neurological issues, high blood pressure? Not that I'm aware of. He's always been healthy. Any recent illnesses, infections, injuries? No. Drug use. I started to say no, then hesitated. I don't know. I don't think so, but I realized with sinking horror how little I knew about my son's life anymore. We drifted so far apart that I couldn't answer basic questions about his health, his habits, his daily life. The nurse's expression softened. It's okay. We'll do toxicology as part of the workup. What about family medical history? Any aneurysms, strokes, bleeding disorders? My wife, his mother, had cancer. My mother died of a stroke at 72. She made notes. And your relationship to the patient? I'm his father. Primary contact? I almost laughed. Primary contact. I'd once been everything to Anthony. His whole world. Now I was lucky to see him once a month. I suppose so. His wife, Elizabeth, she should be here soon. Is there anyone else we should call? I thought about my small, fractured family. Sarah's sister in Florida, elderly herself. My brother who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years over some stupid argument I couldn't even remember. Anthony's friends, who Elizabeth had systematically cut out of his life. No, I said quietly. Just us. The nurse stood. A doctor will be out to talk to you as soon as they have results from the CT scan. There's a waiting room down the hall. Can I get you some water? Ice for that bruise. My hand went to my face. The swelling had increased, the pain a constant throb. Water would be good. Thank you. She left, and I sat alone in that room, the silence pressing down like a physical weight. My phone buzzed. Text messages flooding in from neighbors who'd witnessed the ambulance, asking if everything was okay, offering help. Tom Chun had texted, at the hospital, in waiting room. You're not alone. The kindness nearly broke me. I stood and walked to the waiting room. Tom was there, as promised, still in his weekend casual clothes, his weathered face creased with worry. ZAHA. He pulled me into a hug, and I let myself lean into it for just a moment before pulling back. Thank you for coming. Of course. What did the doctors say? Nothing yet. He's in CT now. Tom studied my face, and I saw the question in his eyes. The bruise was impossible to miss now. Angry purple spreading from my cheekbone to my jaw, my eyes starting to swell. ZAHA, what happened to your face? Before I could answer, Elizabeth burst into the waiting room. She'd changed clothes somehow, found time to go home and swap her stained yoga pants for jeans and a sweater, fix her makeup, pull her hair back neatly. It struck me as bizarre, this concern for appearance while her husband fought for his life. Where is he? She demanded. Why aren't they telling me anything? I'm his wife. He's in CT, I said calmly. They're assessing the damage. A doctor will brief us when they know more. This is your fault, she hissed, advancing on me. Your fault. If you hadn't made such a big deal about the cigarette, if you hadn't pushed him, antagonized him. I asked you not to smoke in my house, I said quietly. That's all. You disrespected me. You made Anthony choose between his wife and his father, and the stress, Her voice rose to a near shriek. The stress of dealing with you killed him. He's not dead, Tom said firmly, stepping between us. And yelling in a hospital waiting room isn't helping anyone. Elizabeth turned on him. Who the hell are you? Tom Chun, Zaha's neighbor and friend. And you need to calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. My husband is in there because of his father's selfishness. Ma'am. A security guard had appeared, drawn by the commotion. I need you to lower your voice or step outside. Elizabeth's mouth opened and closed. Then she collapsed into a chair, her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no anger. Just a vast emptiness where emotions should have been. Tom guided me to a seat on the opposite side of the waiting room. Tell me what really happened. So I did. Quietly, in a voice barely above a whisper, I told him about the cigarette, the argument, and the slap. The words felt like confessing a crime, admitting that I'd failed so completely as a father that my son had raised his hand to me. Tom's face went hard. He hit you. Yes. Jesus, Zaha. And now he might die, and the last thing he'll remember is the violence between us. The last thing I'll remember is the sound of his hand hitting my face. Don't think like that. He'll be okay. But neither of us believed it. Have you ever had to forgive someone, even while they were hurting you? Share your story below. Sometimes the hardest moments teach us what love really means. An hour passed. Then 2. Other families came and went, their own crises playing out in the sterile waiting room. A teenager with a broken arm. An elderly woman with chest pains. The ordinary tragedies of a Sunday evening. Elizabeth sat across the room, on her phone, typing furiously. I wondered who she was texting, what story she was spinning. Would she tell people the truth? Or would I become the villain in her narrative, the cruel father who caused his son's collapse? Finally, a doctor emerged. Young, exhausted, with the look of someone who'd been on shift too long. Family of Anthony Morrison? We all stood. Me, Tom, Elizabeth. I'm Dr. Patel, neurology. He looked between Elizabeth and me. Who's the next of kin? I'm his wife, Elizabeth said quickly. And I'm his father, I added. Dr. Patel nodded. Anthony suffered a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. The CT scan showed significant bleeding in the subarachnoid space. We've taken him directly to surgery. The words hit like bullets. Ruptured aneurysm. Surgery. Each one a potential death sentence. Is he going to die? Elizabeth asked, her voice small suddenly, young and frightened. The next few hours are critical. The neurosurgeon is Dr. Reeves. She's one of the best. They're working to clip the aneurysm and relieve the pressure on his brain. But I need to be honest with you. This is a life-threatening condition. Even with successful surgery, there's a significant risk of complications, stroke, permanent brain damage, seizures. But he could survive? I asked. Yes, he could survive. But we won't know the extent of the damage until he wakes up. If he wakes up. How long? I asked. The surgery? 4 to 6 hours. Possibly longer depending on what they find. There's a surgical waiting room on the 4th floor. I'll have someone escort you up. The surgical team will update you as they're able. He left, and we stood in terrible silence. This is your fault, Elizabeth said again, but there was no heat in it now. Just a flat, defeated certainty. He was fine until we came to your house. Fine until you pushed him. I didn't push him, I said tiredly. I asked you to respect a boundary in my home. A cigarette, Zaha. You destroyed our family over a cigarette. He hit me, I said, and the words hung in the air like an accusation. Your husband hit his 68-year-old father in the face. And you want to talk about who destroyed what? Elizabeth's eyes widened. She opened her mouth, closed it. For the first time, I saw something like shame cross her face. He was defending me, she said weakly. By committing elder abuse. By choosing violence. You provoked him. By asking for basic respect. I stepped closer, and she flinched back. Let me be very clear, Elizabeth. When Anthony wakes up, and he will wake up, things are going to change. Because I won't accept this anymore. I won't accept being treated like garbage in my own home. I won't accept violence. And I won't accept you manipulating my son into betraying everything I raised him to be. You can't. I can. And I will. Because I love him. And love means setting boundaries, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I turned and walked toward the elevator, Tom following. Behind me, I heard Elizabeth start to cry. Real tears this time, not performative ones. But I didn't look back. My son was in surgery, fighting for his life. And I had 4 to 6 hours to figure out how to forgive him if he survived, and how to live with the guilt if he didn't. The surgical waiting room on the 4th floor was designed for long vigils. Comfortable chairs, dim lighting, a coffee station in the corner. Windows overlooking the city, now dark with night having fallen while we waited. Tom got us coffee, terrible hospital coffee that tasted like despair, and we sat. When Sarah was dying, I said suddenly, Anthony was 20. In college. He came home every weekend that last month, sat with her, held her hand. He was so good with her, so gentle. He'd read to her, play her favorite music. And when she finally went, he held me while I fell apart. He's a good man, Tom said. He lost his way, but he's a good man. Is he? Good men don't hit their fathers. Good men don't let their wives treat their family like garbage. Good men make mistakes. Sometimes terrible ones. The measure isn't the mistake, it's what they do after. If he survives. When he survives, Tom corrected. You Morrison men are too stubborn to die easily. I managed a weak smile. Sarah used to say that. Called us her stubborn fools. Hours crept by. Elizabeth eventually made her way up, sitting far from us, her face pale and drawn. Around midnight, she fell asleep in her chair, curled up like a child. I couldn't sleep. Could only sit and think about all the moments that had led us here. The small compromises, the gradual erosion of boundaries, the slow poisoning of our relationship. When had I stopped fighting for my son? When had I decided that keeping the peace was more important than keeping him safe? At 2:47 a.m., Dr. Reeves emerged from the surgical suite. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back and eyes that had seen too much suffering to offer false hope. She still wore her surgical scrubs, spatters of blood, my son's blood, visible on the fabric. We all stood. Elizabeth woke with a start. Anthony survived the surgery, Dr. Reeves said, and the relief nearly brought me to my knees. We successfully clipped the aneurysm and evacuated most of the blood. But he's in critical condition. The next 72 hours will tell us whether he'll recover and what level of function he might regain. Can we see him? I asked. He's in the ICU. Immediate family only, and only briefly. He's still intubated and heavily sedated. Elizabeth moved forward. I'm his wife. Dr. Reeves looked at me. And you? His father. You can both see him, but only for a few minutes. He needs rest. We followed her through sterile corridors to the ICU. The antiseptic smell brought back memories of Sarah's final days, of watching machines breathe for her when her own lungs gave up. Anthony's room was a forest of machines. Monitors beeped rhythmically. For poles stood like sentinels. A ventilator whooshed air into his lungs. And in the middle of it all, my son lay pale and still, his head wrapped in white bandages, his face slack and empty. Elizabeth rushed to his side, taking his hand, whispering his name. He didn't respond. Couldn't respond. I approached slowly, my old heart hammering. This man had struck me hours ago. Had chosen his wife's whims over his father's dignity. Had screamed that I was controlling, manipulative, disappointing. And now he lay here, helpless as a child, dependent on machines to keep him alive. I touched his hand, the other one, the one Elizabeth wasn't clutching, and felt the warmth of his skin, the pulse beating steadily beneath. I'm here, son, I whispered. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. You fight. You hear me? You fight to come back, and we'll figure out the rest. We'll fix what's broken. But you have to fight. His hand didn't squeeze back. His eyes didn't flutter. He lay there, suspended between life and death, and all I could do was stand witness and hope it was enough. The ICU had its own rhythm. The steady beep of heart monitors, the mechanical whisper of ventilators, the soft squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum. It was a rhythm I'd learned during Sarah's final days, and now I was learning it again, watching my son fight for his life. 72 hours. That's what Dr. Reeves had said. 3 days to determine if Anthony would survive with his mind intact, or if the man I'd raised would be lost forever, replaced by someone damaged beyond repair. I settled into the ICU waiting room, making it my temporary home. Tom brought me a change of clothes from my house, toiletries, my reading glasses. The nurses, bless them, brought me coffee and occasionally smuggled in real food instead of vending machine garbage. Elizabeth, by contrast, came and went. She'd sit with Anthony for an hour, then disappear for 3. When I asked where she went, she was vague. I need air. I can't breathe in this place. But I smelled cigarette smoke on her when she returned. And her phone was constantly in her hand, typing, scrolling, her face illuminated by the screen's cold glow. On the second day, a woman I didn't recognize approached me in the waiting room. She was in her 40s, professionally dressed, with a kind but serious expression. "Mr. Morrison? I'm Jennifer Walsh, social worker. Can we talk?" Dread settled in my stomach. "Is Anthony? He's stable. This is about something else." She sat down beside me, her voice lowering. "Mr. Morrison, the ER staff noted some injuries on you. The bruising on your face. They're concerned about elder abuse." The words hung between us, ugly and true. "It's nothing," I said automatically. "With respect, sir, it's not nothing. That's a significant contusion, and the pattern is consistent with being struck. We have a duty to investigate." I looked down at my hands, weathered and old, folded in my lap. My son was upset. It was a moment of anger. "It won't happen again. Mr. Morrison, your son is in the ICU after a catastrophic medical event that occurred minutes after he struck you. The stress of what he did, the guilt, the anger, the adrenaline, those are all risk factors for aneurysm rupture. You're saying I caused this?" "No. I'm saying violence has consequences, and sometimes those consequences are immediate and devastating. But what concerns me is your safety. If Anthony wakes up, if he recovers, what happens when you're back in that dynamic? He's my son, and that doesn't give him the right to hit you. Mr. Morrison, elder abuse is serious. We can connect you with resources, support, legal protection if needed. I don't need protection from my own child." My voice was harsher than I intended. "I need him to wake up. I need him to be okay. Everything else, we'll deal with it." Jennifer studied me for a long moment. "I understand, but I'm going to give you my card. If things change, if you need help, please call me. No one deserves to be hurt by their family, not even if they love them." She left, and I sat holding her card, the words Elder Abuse Resources printed in neat block letters. I threw it in the trash. That afternoon, Anthony's condition changed. I was dozing in the waiting room chair when a nurse shook my shoulder gently. "Mr. Morrison, your son is showing signs of waking up. You should come." I followed her at a near run, my old knees protesting. In the ICU room, surrounded by machines and monitors, Anthony's eyes were moving beneath his closed lids. His fingers twitched. The ventilator settings had been adjusted. They were weaning him off, letting him try to breathe on his own. Elizabeth was already there, gripping his hand. "Anthony, baby, it's me. Can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." "Nothing." I moved to the other side of the bed. "Anthony, it's Dad. Come on, son. Come back to us." His eyelids fluttered, then opened. For a moment, his gaze was unfocused, confused. Then his eyes found mine, and I saw recognition dawn, followed immediately by something else. Horror. His mouth moved around the ventilator tube, trying to speak. Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes. "Don't try to talk," the nurse said gently. "You have a breathing tube. We're going to remove it soon, but you need to stay calm. Can you nod if you understand?" Anthony nodded weakly, never breaking eye contact with me. His hand, the one I was holding, squeezed mine so tightly it hurt. And I understood what that squeeze meant. "I'm sorry. God, Dad, I'm so sorry." Dr. Reeves was called. She arrived quickly, examined Anthony, checked his responses, his pupil reactions, asked him to squeeze her fingers, move his toes. Everything worked. Everything responded. "This is very good," she said. "Remarkably good, actually. Anthony, I'm going to remove the breathing tube now. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it will only take a moment. Then you'll be able to talk." "Okay." Another nod. The extubation was as unpleasant as promised. Anthony gagged and coughed, his face going red, his body convulsing. Then the tube was out, and he was breathing on his own, gasping and raw but alive. "Water," he croaked. The nurse gave him ice chips instead. "Small amounts first. Your throat is going to be very sore." We waited while he sucked on ice, while his breathing steadied, while his eyes cleared further. Elizabeth peppered him with questions. How did he feel? Did he remember what happened? Did he know where he was? "Elizabeth," Dr. Reeves said firmly. "Let him adjust. He's just regained consciousness after major brain surgery. Give him time." Elizabeth stepped back, looking chastised. Anthony's eyes found mine again. "Dad," he whispered, his voice like broken glass. "I'm here, son. I hit you." Tears spilled down his face. "Oh God, I hit you. And then what happened to me? You had an aneurysm, I said gently. It ruptured. You've been in surgery, in the ICU for almost 3 days. Because I hit you. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of terrible understanding. The stress, the guilt, the God, what did I do? Anthony, you need to stay calm, Dr. Reeves warned. Your blood pressure is rising. We can talk about everything later. Right now, you need to rest. But Anthony wasn't listening. His eyes were fixed on my face, on the bruise that had faded from purple to yellow-green, but was still unmistakable. I gave you that, he whispered. I did that to you. Yes, I said, because lying would have been worse. But you're alive. We're both alive. Everything else, we'll figure out. How can you even look at me? How can you be here? Because you're my son. Because I love you. Because, my voice broke. Because that's what fathers do. Elizabeth moved forward. Anthony, baby, don't upset yourself. Your dad was being difficult. You were stressed. It was just a moment of, don't. Anthony's voice was stronger now, sharp. Don't make excuses. Don't minimize it. I hit my father. My 68-year-old father with a heart condition. I hit him in anger because he asked you to put out a cigarette. I was disrespected. You were asked to follow a simple rule in his house. And I defended your behavior by committing elder abuse. His voice was rising, and the monitors started alarming. What kind of man does that? What kind of son am I? Dr. Reeves pressed the call button. I need sedation in here. Now. A nurse rushed in with a syringe, pushed medication through Anthony's fore. Within seconds, his agitation began to ease, his words slurring. Dad. He mumbled as the drugs pulled him under. I'm sorry. So sorry. Please don't leave me. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. Sleep now. We'll talk when you wake up. His eyes closed, and he drifted into medicated sleep. Elizabeth turned on me. This is your fault. You're upsetting him. I'm upsetting him. The anger I'd been holding back for days finally broke free. Your husband just woke up from brain surgery, and the first thing he did was apologize for hitting me. The guilt is eating him alive, Elizabeth. The knowledge that he betrayed everything he was raised to be is destroying him. And you want to make excuses? He was defending me. From what? From being asked to smoke outside? From basic courtesy? I stepped closer, and she backed away. No, Elizabeth. He was defending your right to disrespect me, to walk all over boundaries, to treat my home like your personal kingdom. And it nearly killed him. You don't know that. Dr. Reeves said stress is a risk factor. The social worker said the timing, minutes after violence, isn't coincidental. Anthony knows it. I know it. And deep down, you know it too. Her face twisted. You're trying to turn him against me. I don't have to. You're doing that all by yourself. Dr. Reeves cleared her throat. I think both of you should leave. Anthony needs rest, not this, whatever this is. I nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. In the hallway, Tom was waiting. He'd brought dinner, real food from a real restaurant, not hospital cafeteria mystery meat. I heard him wake up, Tom said. How is he? Aware. Guilty. Alive. I sank into a waiting room chair. He remembered hitting me. The first thing he did was apologize. That's a good sign. Means his conscience is intact. Or that the guilt of what he did is going to haunt him forever. Tom handed me a container of pasta. Eat. You haven't had a real meal in days. I picked at the food, my appetite gone. Through the waiting room window, I could see Elizabeth on her phone again, pacing, agitated. She's texting someone, Tom observed. Been doing it constantly. You see who? No. And I don't care. But I did care. Because something about her behavior felt off, calculated. Like she was playing a game I couldn't see. Day 3 brought complications. Anthony developed a fever. Infection, the doctors said. Not uncommon after brain surgery, but dangerous. They started aggressive antibiotics, monitored him constantly. I sat by his bed during the brief visiting windows, watching him sleep fitfully, his face flushed with fever, his body fighting battles on multiple fronts. During one visit, he woke briefly. Dad, I'm here. I need to tell you something. His words were slurred with fever and medication. Elizabeth, she's not who you think. Rest, son. We can talk when you're better. No. Now. Before I. He coughed, grimaced. She married me for money. For status. I was too blind to see it. Anthony. She has debts. Gambling debts. Thousands. Told me they were medical bills from before we met. I paid them. Then more bills. More debts. Always more. His eyes struggled to focus. She wanted me to ask you for money. Said you were sitting on savings while we struggled. I defended her. Always defended her. You were trying to be a good husband. I was being a fool. And a terrible son. His hand found mine. If I don't make it, you're going to make it. If I don't, you need to know. I see it now. The manipulation. The isolation. How she cut me off from you. From friends. From anyone who might tell me the truth. Tears tracked down his fever-flushed face. I'm sorry I let her. I'm sorry I chose her over you. I'm sorry for everything. Save your strength. Fight this infection. When you're well, we'll fix everything. I promise. He nodded weakly and slipped back into fevered sleep. I stood to leave and found Elizabeth in the doorway. Her face was pale, her eyes hard. You heard, I said. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's sick, delusional. He knows exactly what he's saying. And so do you. She stepped into the room, closing the door. You want to know the truth, Zaha? Fine. Yes, I married Anthony because he was a lawyer with prospects. Yes, I've pushed him to make more money, to live better. What's wrong with wanting a good life? Nothing. Unless you destroy people to get it. I didn't destroy him. You did. With your judgments, your disappointed looks, your constant reminders that he'll never measure up to your perfect standards. That's a lie. Is it? You think he doesn't feel your disappointment? That he didn't spend his whole life trying to earn your approval? She laughed bitterly. I gave him permission to stop trying. To live his own life. And you couldn't stand it. You isolated him. Controlled him. Ran up debts and expected him. Expected me to pay for your lifestyle. So what if I did? That money was just sitting there, and you're not going to live forever. Why shouldn't Anthony benefit from your hoarding? There it was. The truth, naked and ugly. Because it's not his money. It's mine. Earned through decades of work. And teaching him that he's entitled to it without earning it himself? That's not love, Elizabeth. That's poison. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. He hit you because of me. You said it yourself. The stress, the guilt. If he dies, it's because you pushed him to that breaking point. You can blame me all you want, but you're the one who couldn't let go. The words hit like physical blows. Was she right? Had my stubbornness, my refusal to just give in, pushed Anthony past his limits? No, I said firmly. I set a boundary. A reasonable one. And instead of respecting it, instead of being a man who could stand up to his wife's unreasonable demands, he chose violence. Those were his choices. His failures. And now he's paying for them. We'll see what he chooses when he wakes up, Elizabeth said. Me or you. And I think we both know who he'll pick. She left, and I sank into the chair beside Anthony's bed, exhausted, heartsick, wondering if she was right. Wondering if love was enough, or if I'd lost my son long before the aneurysm ever ruptured. Day 5 brought clarity. Anthony's fever broke overnight. When I arrived at the ICU that morning, Dr. Reeves met me with a smile, the first genuine one I'd seen from her. He's improving rapidly. The infection is responding to antibiotics. Brain function tests are all positive, and we're moving him out of ICU this afternoon. He's asking for you. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I had to grip the wall for support. He's going to be okay? Barring complications, yes. He'll need rehabilitation, monitoring, lifestyle changes. But he should make a full recovery. She paused. Mr. Morrison, I want you to know, what your son survived is remarkable. The rupture, the surgery, the infection. Most patients don't walk away from this. He's lucky. Lucky. The word felt strange applied to everything we'd been through. But alive was better than the alternative. I found Anthony sitting up in bed, the ventilator gone, most of the tubes removed. He looked fragile still, his head bandaged, his face gaunt. But his eyes were clear, focused, present. Dad. His voice was stronger, though still rough. Come in. Please. I sat in the chair beside his bed, and we looked at each other across the chasm of everything unsaid. I remember it all, Anthony said finally. Every word. Every moment. The cigarette. The argument. Hitting you. His voice broke. I remember the sound it made. The look on your face. God. Dad. The look on your face. Anthony. Let me say this. Please. He took a shaky breath. I've had days lying here, thinking. About who I've become. About the choices I've made. About how I let Elizabeth twist me into someone I don't recognize. Tears spilled down his cheeks. I raised my hand to my father. My father who worked 3 jobs to raise me. Who paid for my education. who never once raised his voice to me, let alone his hand. What kind of monster does that make me? You're not a monster. You're human. You made a terrible mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Dad. Mistakes are accidents. What I did was a choice. I chose Elizabeth's ego over your dignity. I chose violence over dialogue. And I almost died for it, literally. This aneurysm. The doctors said stress and anger can trigger ruptures. I hit you, and minutes later, my brain exploded. That's not coincidence. That's consequences. I reached for his hand. You're alive. You're here. That's what matters. Is it? Because I don't know if I deserve your forgiveness. I don't know if I can forgive myself. Then we'll figure it out together. But first, you need to focus on healing. Anthony nodded, wiping his eyes. Then his expression hardened. I need to end things with Elizabeth. Today, before I lose my nerve. You don't have to rush. Yes, I do. Because every hour I'm still married to her is another hour I'm betraying everything you taught me. He pressed the call button. I need to speak with the social worker. And I need you to stay. Please. I need a witness. The social worker, Jennifer Walsh, who'd given me her card days ago, arrived within 20 minutes. Anthony was direct. I want to file for divorce. Immediately. And I want a restraining order against my wife. Jennifer's eyebrows rose. Mr. Morrison, you just came out of ICU. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. My wife manipulated me, isolated me from my father, and pushed me to violence. I won't let her have another day of my life. I'll need statements, evidence. I'll give you everything. The financial records showing her debts. The texts where she pressured me to demand money from my father. Everything. He looked at me. Dad, you need to tell her about the elder abuse. What I did. It needs to be documented. Anthony, that will complicate things for you legally. Good. I should be held accountable. What I did was criminal. Let it be on record. His voice was firm, resolved. I won't hide behind excuses or minimize what happened. I hit my father, and there should be consequences. Jennifer made notes. I'll start the paperwork. But Mr. Morrison, your wife has legal rights. She'll be notified. She'll likely contest the divorce, especially if she learns about the restraining order. Let her contest it. Let her fight. She'll lose. Anthony's jaw set in a way that reminded me of myself at his age. Because I'm done. Done being controlled. Done being manipulated. Done betraying my father. Elizabeth arrived an hour later, all smiles and concern, carrying flowers and a teddy bear that said, "Get well soon. Baby, you're awake. You look so much better." She moved to kiss him. Anthony turned his face away. Don't. She froze. Anthony, what? Sit down, Elizabeth. We need to talk. Something in his tone made her pause. She set the flowers down slowly, her eyes darting between Anthony and me. What's going on? I'm divorcing you. The words dropped like stones. Elizabeth's face went through a rapid succession of expressions: shock, disbelief, anger, then calculation. You're on medication. You're not thinking clearly. Baby, you nearly died. You're emotional. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years. Since the day I married you, actually. Anthony's voice was steady, cold. I know about the gambling debts. The real reason you needed money from my father. I know about the manipulation, the isolation, how you cut me off from everyone who cared about me. That's not. I was protecting you. From what? From my father? The man who sacrificed everything for me. Anthony gestured to me. You turned me against him. Convinced me he was selfish, controlling, withholding. And I believed you. God help me. I believed you because I was too weak to see what you really were. Elizabeth's mask was cracking. Anthony, please. I love you. Everything I did was because I love you. You love what I can provide. The lifestyle. The status. The money. He pulled out his phone. Someone must have brought it. I've been reading your texts. The ones you thought I'd never see because you had my password and deleted them from my phone. But they're still in the cloud, Elizabeth. Every message to your friends about how you were managing the old man. How you'd have him eating out of our hands soon. Every complaint about having to deal with Anthony's pathetic father. Her face went pale. You're taking them out of context. He's sitting on $300K while we struggle. Anthony needs to grow a spine and demand what's rightfully his. That was you, 3 months ago. Anthony's voice shook with anger. I didn't demand anything. You demanded it. You wrote the script. You pushed me to hurt my father, and like an idiot, I performed exactly as you wanted. I wanted you to stand up for us. You wanted access to money that wasn't ours. Anthony's shout made the monitors beep in warning. He took a breath, forced himself calm. But here's what you didn't count on. Consequences. I hit my father. Minutes later, my brain hemorrhaged. I almost died, Elizabeth. And lying in that ICU, knowing what I'd done, I realized something. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. I'd rather die than be the kind of man who'd hit his father. I'd rather lose everything than become what you wanted me to be. So here's what's happening. I'm divorcing you. I've filed for a restraining order. You're not to contact me, visit me, or come near my father again. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what you are. Elizabeth stood, her face twisted with rage. You ungrateful bastard. After everything I did for you, you did nothing for me. You used me. There's a difference. You were nothing before me. A boring associate with no ambition. I made you make partner. I pushed you to succeed. By spending us into debt? By creating so much financial pressure I couldn't think straight? By manipulating me into attacking my own father? Anthony shook his head. That's not support. That's abuse. Fine. Elizabeth's voice went icy. Divorce me. But I'll take half of everything. The retirement account. The investments. Your father's precious money that he refused to give us. I'll get it in the settlement. No, you won't. Jennifer Walsh stepped into the room, holding a tablet. Mrs. Morrison, I've been documenting this conversation. You just admitted to financial manipulation and elder abuse coercion. That affects divorce settlements. Significantly. Elizabeth whirled on her. Who the hell are you? Hospital social worker. And as of 10 minutes ago, the restraining order has been approved. You need to leave this room immediately, or I'll call security. Elizabeth looked between us, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. Then she lunged toward me. This is your fault. You poisoned him against me. You couldn't stand that he chose me. Anthony pressed his call button repeatedly. Security. Now, 2 security guards appeared, moving to flank Elizabeth. Ma'am, you need to leave, one said firmly. He's my husband, and he's asked you to leave. Come with us, or we'll have you removed and charged with trespassing. Elizabeth stared at Anthony, her eyes filled with venom. You'll regret this. You're nothing without me. You'll come crawling back, and I won't be there. I'm counting on it, Anthony said quietly. They escorted her out, her shouts echoing down the corridor until distance and closed doors muted them. The room fell silent except for the beeping monitors and Anthony's ragged breathing. I'm sorry you had to see that, Dad, he said finally. I'm not. I needed to see who she really was. Who you really are. I moved to his bedside. That took courage, son. It took almost dying. That's not courage. That's desperation. He looked at me, his eyes red and swollen. Dad, I don't know how to make this right. How do I apologize for hitting you? How do I earn back your trust? One day at a time. One choice at a time. I want to come home. After I'm released. Not to your house. I'm not asking that. But back to Cleveland. Close to you. So I can. I don't know. Learn how to be your son again. My throat tightened. You never stopped being my son. Even when you hit me. Even when you chose her over me. You were always my son. How can you forgive me so easily? Who said it was easy? I touched my face, where the bruise had faded to yellow. This hurt. What you said hurt worse. The betrayal, the violence, it shattered something. But love doesn't give up, Anthony. Real love survives even the worst betrayals. It survives because the alternative, losing you, is worse than any pain you could inflict. Anthony broke down completely, sobbing like he hadn't since his mother died. I held him, carefully, mindful of his injuries, and let him cry out the grief and guilt and shame of everything he'd done and everything he'd become. Dr. Reeves checked on us an hour later. I heard there was some excitement. My wife, ex-wife, was escorted out by security, Anthony said, wiping his face. Good. She was raising your blood pressure every time she visited. Dr. Reeves checked his vitals. Your numbers are better now than they've been since surgery. Interesting. Turns out toxic relationships are bad for your health, Anthony said with a weak smile. Literally, in your case. She made notes. I'm going to keep you another day for observation, then you can transfer to a regular room. After that, probably 3 more days before discharge. You'll need physical therapy, occupational therapy, and I strongly recommend counseling. Already planning on it, Anthony said. Individual and family therapy, if Dad's willing. I'm willing, I said immediately. Dr. Reeves nodded approvingly. Good. You're going to need support as you recover. Brain injuries affect more than just physical health. Mood changes, emotional regulation, memory issues, they're all possible. Having family helps. After she left, Anthony said, I meant what I said. About coming back to Cleveland. The LA job, I'm going to turn it down. Are you sure? It was a good opportunity. It was Elizabeth's opportunity. She wanted the California lifestyle, and I was just the ticket to get it. He shook his head. I want to practice law here. Small firm, real people, real problems. Like what you and Mom taught me. That success isn't about money or prestige. It's about making a difference. Your mother would be proud. She always said you had a good heart, even when you were being stubborn. I got the stubborn from you, Anthony said with a small smile. Then his expression grew serious. Dad, I need to ask. When I hit you, did I hurt you? I mean, more than just the bruise. Your heart. I'm fine. My heart is stronger than it looks. I could have killed you. If the stress had triggered another heart attack, his voice broke. I could have murdered my own father over a cigarette. But you didn't. We're both here. Both alive. Both getting a second chance. I don't deserve it. None of us deserve grace. That's why it's grace. I squeezed his hand. You're going to spend the rest of your life making different choices, being a different man. That's how you make this right. Not by punishing yourself forever, but by becoming the person your mother and I always believed you could be. Anthony nodded, fresh tears streaming down his face. I'll make you proud, Dad. I promise. Really proud this time. You already do, son. You already do. 3 weeks later, I stood in the driveway of my small Cleveland house, watching Tom's truck pull up with Anthony in the passenger seat. The hospital had released him after 10 days. He'd spent the following 2 weeks in a rehabilitation facility, relearning balance, coordination, managing the fatigue that came with brain injury recovery. Now he was coming home, not to my house permanently, but to the apartment he'd rented 2 blocks away. Close enough to help, far enough to give us both space to heal. Tom helped Anthony out of the truck. He moved slowly, carefully, one hand instinctively going to his head where hair was just beginning to grow back over the surgical scar. He'd lost weight, looked older, but his eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in years. Dad, he said, and there was something in his voice, vulnerability, hope, fear, that reminded me of the 7-year-old boy who'd clung to me at his mother's funeral. Welcome home, son. We didn't hug. Not yet. The physical wound had healed, but the emotional distance remained, a chasm we'd need to cross carefully, deliberately. Tom unloaded 2 suitcases, all that remained of Anthony's old life. The Los Angeles job had been declined. The divorce papers had been filed. Elizabeth had returned to the Meadowbrook house long enough to pack her things and disappear, leaving Anthony with debt and damaged credit, but also freedom. I'll help you get settled, I said, reaching for a suitcase. Dad, you don't have to. I want to. The apartment was modest, 1 bedroom, small kitchen, a living room with windows facing my street. I could see my house from here, could watch the lights come on in the evenings. It felt intentional, this proximity. Like Anthony was keeping vigil, making sure I was safe after he'd been the one to threaten my safety. We unpacked in silence, the comfortable kind that comes from years of knowing each other. Tom made coffee, still terrible. He never could make decent coffee, and we sat in Anthony's new living room, 3 men processing everything unspoken. Therapy starts tomorrow, Anthony said finally. Individual sessions 3 times a week, plus the neurologist appointments and physical therapy. That's a full schedule. I need it. The therapist said I have a lot to unpack. The marriage, the violence, the brain injury, everything. He looked at me. She wants to do family sessions. You and me, working through what happened. Would you be willing? The question hung between us. Was I willing to sit in a room and relive the moment my son struck me? To examine the breakdown of our relationship, the manipulation, the betrayal? Yes, I said. Whatever helps us heal. Relief flooded Anthony's face. Thank you. I know I don't deserve. Stop. I set down my coffee. You keep saying you don't deserve forgiveness, don't deserve help, don't deserve grace. But you're my son. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing love over resentment, relationship over punishment. So yes, I'm willing. Not because you've earned it, but because I love you. Anthony's eyes filled. I don't know how you can still love me after what I did. Because love isn't a transaction. It's not something you earn or lose based on behavior. It's a choice I make every day, to be your father, to support you, to believe you can be better than your worst moment. What if I'm not? What if his voice broke? What if I'm still that man who hit his father? What if the surgery changed something, damaged something, and I can't control my anger anymore? Then we'll deal with it. Together. That's what the therapy is for. That's what recovery means. I leaned forward. Anthony, you're not defined by your worst moment. You're defined by what you do next. By the choice you make every day to be better, to heal, to make amends. Tom nodded. Your father's right. I've known you since you were 12 years old. I watched you grow up. One moment of terrible judgment doesn't erase 35 years of being a good man. It doesn't erase it, Anthony said quietly. But it reveals something. A weakness. A capacity for violence I didn't know I had. We all have that capacity, I said. The difference is whether we feed it or fight it. You're choosing to fight it. That matters. CTA number 3. Have you ever had to rebuild trust after breaking it? Share your journey in the comments. Sometimes knowing others have walked this path helps us find our own way forward. The first family therapy session was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Dr. Rachel Morrison, no relation, she'd assured us with a smile, was in her 50s, with warm eyes and a manner that was both gentle and direct. Her office was comfortable, designed to put people at ease with soft lighting and artwork that suggested calm. Thank you both for coming, she said, settling into her chair. I understand this is difficult. ZAHA, Anthony's individual sessions have covered a lot of ground, but he felt it was important to have you here to address what happened directly. Are you comfortable with that? Yes, I said, though my stomach churned. Good. Let's start with the event itself. Anthony, can you walk us through what happened that day? Anthony took a deep breath. Over the next 30 minutes, he recounted everything. The dinner invitation, Elizabeth smoking, the argument, his explosion of anger, and the slap. He didn't minimize or excuse. He spoke plainly, his voice breaking repeatedly, tears streaming down his face. I remember the sound, he said. The crack when my hand hit his face. The way his glasses flew off. The shock in his eyes, not just pain, but betrayal. Like he couldn't believe I'd done it. And I couldn't believe it either, but I had. I'd struck my 68-year-old father in his own home. Dr. Morrison turned to me. ZAHA, what was that moment like for you? I'd been dreading this question. It felt like the world stopped. Like everything I'd believed about my son, about our relationship, about who we were to each other. It all shattered in that moment. I'd survived my wife's death, a heart attack, financial struggles. But nothing prepared me for my own child raising his hand to me. Did you fear for your safety? In that moment? Yes. Not because I thought he'd do it again, but because I realized I didn't know him anymore. The man standing in my living room wasn't the son I'd raised. He was a stranger capable of violence, and I didn't know what else he might be capable of. Anthony made a sound, half sob, half gasp. God, Dad. Let him finish, Dr. Morrison said gently. But then, minutes later, he collapsed. And everything changed again. Because he wasn't a stranger anymore. He was my son, dying on my driveway, and all I wanted was for him to survive. The anger, the betrayal, it all disappeared. I just needed him to live. That's love, Dr. Morrison said. The ability to hold both truths, the hurt and the hope. The betrayal and the bond. She looked at Anthony. Your father's capacity for forgiveness is remarkable. But Anthony, forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. What do you think the consequences should be? Anthony wiped his face. Accountability. I want it on record. What I did, the elder abuse. I want to take an anger management course, even though the doctors say the aneurysm likely contributed to my rage. I want to make amends, not just through words, but through actions. And I want to rebuild trust slowly, earning back what I destroyed. Those are good starting points, Dr. Morrison said. ZAHA, what do you need from Anthony to feel safe again? I thought about it. Consistency. Following through on what he promises. Respecting boundaries, mine his own. And honest communication. No more letting resentment build until it explodes. Can you both commit to that? We nodded. Good. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Rebuilding trust takes time, especially after violence. But the fact that you're both here, both willing, both committed, that's more than most families have. The weeks turned into months. Anthony attended therapy religiously, individual sessions, family sessions, an anger management group. He started volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping people who couldn't afford representation. He joined a support group for brain injury survivors, processing the reality that he'd always be managing the aftermath of the aneurysm. Slowly, he became someone new. Not the entitled man Elizabeth had shaped, not the angry stranger who'd struck me, but someone in between, someone learning who he wanted to be. We had Sunday dinners again. At my house initially, though I noticed Anthony never stayed late. He'd eat, help clean up, then leave before old tensions could resurface. It was careful, controlled, but it was something. One Sunday in late spring, 6 months after the aneurysm, Anthony arrived early, carrying tools. "What's this?" I asked. "Your back porch railing is loose. I noticed it last week. Figured I'd fix it before you trip and break something." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "If that's okay." "It's more than okay." We worked together in companionable silence, me holding boards steady while he drilled, passing tools, measuring twice, and cutting once like I'd taught him when he was young. "I've been thinking," Anthony said, his voice casual but forced. "About Mom." I paused. We rarely spoke about Sarah. The grief was still too sharp, even after 15 years. "What about her?" "About what she'd think. About everything that happened. About who I became." He set down the drill. "I disappointed her, didn't I?" "She's not here to be disappointed. But if she were, if she'd seen me hit you, seen me turn into someone who'd abuse his own father, she'd be heartbroken," I said honestly. "But she'd also see you now. See you trying to make it right. See you becoming the man she always believed you could be. And she'd be proud of that." Anthony's hands trembled on the railing. "I miss her." "Is that stupid? Missing someone I barely remember? You were 20 when she died. You remember enough. I remember her being sick, being in pain. And I remember you taking care of her, day after day, never complaining. You'd work all day, come home and feed her, bathe her, read to her. You never once lost your patience, never once raised your voice, even when she was at her worst." He looked at me. "That's love. Real love. And I threw it back in your face by becoming someone who could hurt you. You also became someone who could change, who could recognize what he'd done wrong and fight to be better. Your mother would see that too." We finished the railing, tested it, found it solid. "Thank you," I said, "for fixing this. It's the least I can do." Literally. Anthony managed a small smile. "I owe you so much more than a porch railing. Then stay for dinner. Tell me about the legal aid cases you're working on. Be present. That's what I need." He stayed. We ate pot roast, the same meal I'd made the day everything fell apart. And this time, we finished it. We talked about his cases, about my woodworking projects at the community center, about Tom's terrible coffee that somehow never improved. It was normal. Careful, but normal. And it felt like healing. 8 months after the aneurysm, the divorce was finalized. Anthony called me from the courthouse, his voice lighter than I'd heard in years. "It's done. Elizabeth signed everything. She gets nothing except her personal belongings. The judge ruled that her manipulation and financial abuse negated any claim to assets." "How do you feel?" "Free. Terrified. Relieved. All of it." He paused. "Would you want to have dinner tonight?" "Nothing fancy, just, I don't know. I want to celebrate with someone who actually cares about me. Come over. I'll make your favorite." That night, we sat at my kitchen table, the one I'd built 30 years ago, scarred and worn but still solid, and ate spaghetti and meatballs, the meal Sarah used to make for celebrations. "I got offered a position," Anthony said, "at Morrison & Associates. Small family law firm, nothing glamorous. They help people navigate divorces, custody battles, estate planning. Good people doing good work." "Morrison & Associates? Any relation?" He smiled. "No, just a funny coincidence. But I like the idea of sharing a name with the firm. Makes it feel like family." "When do you start?" 2 weeks. "And Dad?" He set down his fork. "I want to ask you something, but if it's too much, just say no." "Ask. Would you come to my first day? Not to stay or anything. Just walk me to the building. A new beginning, you know? With you there." My throat tightened. I'd be honored. The morning of Anthony's first day, I woke early and dressed in my good shirt, the one Sarah had bought me for special occasions. I walked to Anthony's apartment, found him standing outside in a suit, his hair grown back enough to cover the surgical scar, his face still thinner but healthy. "Ready?" I asked. Nervous, but ready. We walked together through the Cleveland streets, past shops opening for the day, past neighbors heading to work. It was ordinary and extraordinary all at once, a father and son, together, moving forward. At the office building, Anthony paused. Thank you. For not giving up on me. For forgiving me when I didn't deserve it. For being here. Thank you for coming back. For choosing to be better. For giving us both a second chance. We hugged, really hugged, for the first time since before the aneurysm. I felt his heart beating against mine. Both of us alive. Both of us healing. Both of us choosing each other. Go, I said. Show them what a Morrison can do. He grinned, my boy's grin, the one I remembered from before Elizabeth, before the darkness, and headed inside. I stood watching until he disappeared through the doors, then turned toward home. Tom was waiting on my porch, 2 cups of terrible coffee in hand. How'd it go, he asked. Good. Really good. I took the coffee, sipped it, didn't comment on how awful it was. He's going to be okay, Tom. You both are. You're stubborn Morrison men. You don't know how to quit. We sat on my newly repaired porch railing, drinking bad coffee and watching the neighborhood wake up. Somewhere in downtown Cleveland, my son was starting over. Learning who he could be without manipulation, without violence, without the weight of his worst choices defining him. And here, in my small house with my old friend beside me, I was starting over too. Learning that forgiveness was a daily choice, that love could survive even betrayal, that family wasn't about perfection, it was about persistence. The bruise had long since faded. The physical wounds had healed. But the memory remained, sharp and painful and somehow, paradoxically, sacred, because it had brought us to this moment, this second chance, this new beginning. My phone buzzed. A text from Anthony. Thank you, Dad. For everything. I love you. I texted back. I love you too, son. Proud of you. Always. And I meant it. Despite everything. Because of everything. Because that's what fathers do. We love our children through their worst moments and their best ones. We hold them accountable and offer them grace. We set boundaries and keep our hearts open. We choose them again and again, even when it costs us everything. Especially then. Tom raised his terrible coffee in a toast. To new beginnings. I clinked my cup against his. To second chances. And to stubborn Morrison men who don't know when to quit. We prefer persistent, I said with a smile. The sun rose higher, painting my street in golden light. Another day, another chance, another moment to choose love over anger, hope over despair, relationship over resentment. I'd asked Elizabeth not to smoke in my home. My son had slapped me for it. 10 minutes later, he'd nearly died. But we both survived. Both fought our way back from the brink. Both learned that consequences, even devastating ones, could become catalysts for change. The story could have ended in tragedy, in death, in permanent estrangement, in bitterness that poisoned everything it touched. Instead, it ended here, on a spring morning, with my son starting a new job, with forgiveness hard-won and trust slowly rebuilding, with 2 scarred but healing hearts choosing each other. It wasn't a perfect ending. The scars remained. The memory of violence lived in both of us. Some things, once broken, never fit together quite the same way. But we were together. We were trying. We were loving each other through the brokenness. And that, I thought, watching the sun climb higher over Cleveland, was its own kind of miracle. The kind earned through pain and persistence. The kind worth fighting for. The kind called family. 2 years later, I stood in a small courtroom watching my son argue his first major case. The client was an elderly man, 73, frail, being sued by his daughter for financial elder abuse because he wouldn't give her his retirement savings. The parallels weren't lost on either of us. Anthony was brilliant, compassionate but fierce, defending his client's right to dignity, to boundaries, to keep what he'd earned through a lifetime of work. He cited case law, cross-examined witnesses, and made an impassioned closing argument that had the judge nodding approvingly. The judge ruled in favor of Anthony's client, dismissed the case entirely, with prejudice. Afterward, the elderly man shook Anthony's hand with tears in his eyes. Thank you. Thank you for understanding. For fighting for me. I had a good teacher, Anthony said, glancing at me. My father taught me what real love looks like, boundaries included. We walked out of the courthouse together, father and son, both of us forever changed by what we'd survived. You were amazing in there, I said. I was fighting for you. For me. For everyone who's ever been told that love means giving up everything. He put his arm around my shoulders. We made it, Dad. We actually made it. We did. And we're okay. Really okay. I looked at my son, healthy, whole, becoming the man he was always meant to be, and smiled. Yes, son, we're more than okay. We're home. And we were, finally, truly home. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.